My sister Naomi had no idea who was waiting for her in that penthouse. Nobody told her. She walked in with her therapy bag, her clipboard, and 5 years of silence she thought she had buried. And the second she saw him sitting in that wheelchair by the window, the clipboard hit the marble floor so hard the whole room flinched. Connor Harlo. The man who chose his empire over her love. Sitting right there. Broken. Looking at her like she was the only solid thing left in his world. I was not in that room. But I know my sister, and I know that the second their eyes locked, every wall she had spent 5 years bleeding to build started to crack. This is what happened next. It is not simple. It is not clean. And it does not end the way either of them planned. Welcome to Danito's Stories. If you're returning, thank you. If you're new, you were meant to find us. Subscribe now. Don't skip. Don't rush. The dramatic part is waiting for you. Now let's begin. My name is Naomi Rivers. And the woman frozen in that doorway was my sister, Naomi. She had walked in that morning the way she always did. Pressed black slacks, cream blouse, natural hair pinned up clean. Professional. Prepared. In control. What she was not prepared for was him. Nobody told her who the patient was. That part was intentional. She found that out later. The penthouse door opened into a wide, silent room. All glass on one side, Atlanta spread 30 floors below like scattered diamonds on dark velvet. The air smelled like expensive leather and, underneath it, something faintly medicinal. Something that told you life had gone badly wrong for whoever lived here. He was by the window. Back to her. A sleek black wheelchair. Burgundy shirt. Shoulders she still recognized even after 5 years, even after everything. The attendant said, "Mr. Harlo, your therapist is here." The chair turned slowly. Naomi's body went cold. Feet first. Like ice water poured straight into her veins. Connor Harlo. He looked at her the way you look at someone you believed you had made peace with losing. And then realized, standing right in front of them, that you had not made peace with a single thing. Her clipboard hit the floor. She didn't reach for it. Neither did he. The attendant looked between them once. Understood something enormous was happening. And quietly left the room. For a long moment, there was nothing but Atlanta behind him and the sound of two people remembering how to breathe. Then Connor said, "I asked for you specifically." Naomi's jaw tightened. Her hands were shaking, but she pressed them still. "Why?" she said. Not a question. A demand. He held her gaze for a long moment. Then quietly, like he was setting something fragile down on glass, he said, "Because you were the best I ever had." A beat. Professionally. She stared at him. She should have walked out right then. She didn't. "I need to take you back. Because you cannot understand what that moment cost her unless you understand what they were to each other before everything fell apart." Naomi met Connor Harlo on a Tuesday afternoon at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. She was 28. Fresh out of her second year as a licensed physical therapist. Still learning how to carry herself in rooms that didn't look like the one she grew up in. Connor was 30. Rotator cuff. Torn during a charity basketball game, which, knowing Connor, probably meant he was showing off. His company, Harlo Development, was starting to pull real attention in commercial real estate. Not billions yet. But the kind of money that makes people start watching you. Naomi told me later that the first thing she noticed wasn't his face. It was his hands. The way they gripped the exam chair armrests like he was already impatient to be somewhere else. She walked in, looked at him and said, "You can let go of those armrests. I'm not going to hurt you." He looked up. "That's exactly what someone would say right before they hurt you." She laughed. She didn't mean to. It just came out. That was it. That was all it took. They dated for 3 years. Real dating. Sunday dinners at Mama's house in Decatur. 2 plates of smothered oxtails. Half a pan of cornbread. Connor telling Mama her kitchen smelled like somewhere he'd been looking for his whole life. Mama loved him for that. I didn't trust him. Not because of who he was. I didn't trust him because I watched how his phone pulled his attention mid-conversation. How his eyes would drift even when his body was still in the room. Like there was always somewhere more important he was supposed to be. Naomi saw it too. She just loved him too much to say it out loud. Yet, by the time Harlo Development started expanding nationally, Something had already cracked between them. Dinners canceled. Trips postponed. Just 6 more months, he kept saying. 6 more months and I'll slow down. 6 months became a year. The calls got shorter. The silences got longer. Then one night, Naomi drove to his place. Sweet potato pie in both hands. His favorite. She had a key. She let herself in. The apartment was dark except for the crack of light under his office door. And through that crack his voice. Laughing. Easy. Comfortable. The kind of laugh she hadn't heard from him in months. She stood in the hallway in the dark, holding that pie, and realized she couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like that with her. She left without knocking. Left the pie on the counter. Left her key on top of it. He called the next morning. She let it go to voicemail. He called again that evening. She picked up. She said, "I think we both know this hasn't been working." He went quiet for a long time. Then, Naomi. Just her name. Nothing else. She said, "I know. Me too." And that was how it ended. No fight. No screaming. Just two people quietly putting each other down like something too heavy to keep carrying. She cried for 3 months. Kept it hidden from everyone except me. Friday nights on her couch, big ceramic bowl of banana pudding, TV on low, not talking about him. Which was its own way of talking about him constantly. Then she rebuilt. The way she always does. Quietly. Completely. Promotion. More complex cases. Her own condo in Midtown. Her hair grown out into a full natural that made strangers stop her on the street. 5 years passed. Long enough to feel like another life. Then the call came. Her supervisor. A private client. Requested her by name. High-profile spinal injury case. Buckhead penthouse. Excellent compensation. Full discretion required. Naomi said yes before she heard the address. She called me that evening, voice lighter than it had been in a while. Good money, Deja. Serious money. And it's exactly the kind of case I've been wanting. I asked, "Do you know who the client is?" She said nobody would tell her until the first session. Something shifted in my stomach right then. I almost said something. Instead I said, "Okay. Let me know how it goes." I should have said something. Naomi bent down, picked up her clipboard, straightened, looked at him. "Let's be clear," she said, and her voice was steady. She was proud of that later. "I am here as your therapist. Nothing else. If that's going to be a problem, say so now and I will refer you to a colleague." Connor held her gaze. Something moved across his face. Not a smile. Something quieter. Something that hurt to look at. "That's not going to be a problem," he said. She nodded. Pulled her chair close. Opened her intake folder. Her hands were steady. But when she looked down at the page, she could not read a single word on it. The first 3 sessions were strictly professional. 9 o'clock sharp. Range of motion assessments. Resistance exercises. Progress notes. She spoke to him the way she spoke to every patient, clear, warm, boundaried. Connor did everything she asked without complaint. That surprised her. The man she remembered had opinions about everything. Would negotiate the terms of a lunch order. This Connor followed her instructions quietly. Jaw set. Eyes focused. Like the work itself was the only thing keeping him anchored. On the 3rd session, she had him on resistance bands when he suddenly said, "You grew your hair out." She didn't look up. "I did. I remember it shorter. The last time I saw you." She wrote something down that didn't need writing. "Mr. Harlo, let's keep the focus." "Connor," he said quietly. "My name is Connor. You keep saying Mr. Harlo." She looked up. He was watching her with an expression she was already learning to be careful around. "Connor," she said. Saying his name out loud in that room did something small and unwanted to her chest. 3 more reps. He did them without another word. But when he finished, he was almost smiling. Something was already moving between them. Whether she named it or not. It was on the 5th session that the walls first started to crack. Naomi arrived early. The attendant let her in. Set up in the living room. She was standing by the window looking out at Atlanta when she heard Connor's voice from down the hall. Not the careful, measured voice he used with her. This was different. Full. Tight. Stripped raw. I told you I don't need you here, Mother. Pause. Stop. I said no. We are done talking about this. A door. Silence. Connor rolled out a minute later, face arranged back into composure. But his knuckles were pale against the wheelchair rims. Naomi said nothing. Went straight into the warm-up like she had heard nothing at all. Halfway through, without looking up, Connor said, "My mother wants to bring in her own specialist. From New York." Naomi kept her hands moving. "What do you think?" "I think she's been trying to manage my life since I was 11. This is just a new version of the same argument." Pause. "I think I'm exactly where I need to be." He was not talking about Atlanta. Naomi knew it. She kept her face neutral. But she filed it away somewhere she was not supposed to be keeping things. Then came Tuesday. And with it, the woman Naomi hadn't been warned about. Her name was Sloane Mercer. Late 30s. Blonde. Connecticut money. She had dated Connor for about 8 months, roughly a year after he and Naomi ended. Naomi didn't know any of this walking in. Sloane was already in the penthouse. Sitting on the couch, legs crossed, coffee cup in hand, talking to Connor in the easy shorthand of two people who had shared private space before. Connor saw Naomi's face the moment she walked through the door. "Sloane was just leaving," he said immediately. Sloane stood, turned, offered Naomi a smile that was warm on the surface and measuring underneath. "You must be the therapist. Connor speaks so highly of you." Naomi shook her hand. "Naomi Rivers." Something moved across Sloane's face at the name. "Quick. Gone." "Of course," she said softly. "I've heard a lot about you." After Sloane left, the room had a different weight to it. Naomi set her bag down slowly. Connor said, "It's not what it looks like." "I didn't say anything." "You didn't have to." She looked at him, then really looked at him. The wheelchair. The thinner face. The eyes carrying something she still didn't have full access to. She thought about the man who used to make her laugh in hospital hallways. The man who let her leave a sweet potato pie on a cold counter. The man who, across 5 years and all the wreckage between them, had asked for her specifically. "Connor," she said, "what are we doing here?" Not a question. A reckoning. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out. Slowly. His fingers barely grazed the back of her hand, barely, the softest possible contact, like he understood exactly how much was balanced on this moment and didn't want to tip it. And he said it quietly, like it cost him something real. "Stay with me. Let me prove I'm still the man you remember." The Atlanta skyline sat behind him, indifferent and glittering. Naomi's hand did not move. Her eyes went bright. Just for a second. 1 second. Then she pulled her hand back. Looked down at her folder. "Let's start with the mobility sequence," she said. Connor nodded. He didn't push. But when she glanced up halfway through the session, he was watching her with a patience she had never seen in him before. The patience of a man who had learned, finally, and at tremendous cost, how to wait. That scared her more than anything else. Mama found out on a Sunday. Not because Naomi told her. Mama always finds out. She noticed the way Naomi moved through the house that afternoon, too careful, too contained. Like a woman carrying a glass filled right to the rim, terrified to spill. Mama waited until after dinner. After the sweet potato pie was cut and the dishes cleared and Naomi was at the sink with her back to the room. Then Mama sat down at the kitchen table and said simply, "It's him, isn't it?" Naomi's hands went still under the water. She turned off the faucet. Dried her hands slowly. Turned around. "It's a professional arrangement, Mama?" Mama looked at her with those quiet, unblinking eyes. "Baby, I have known you since before you could walk. Do not professional arrangement me." I was sitting at that table. I had known for weeks. Watching Naomi stand there gripping that dish towel, I felt something tighten in my chest. Naomi sat down. Explained it carefully. Spinal injury case. Legitimate referral. Professional distance maintained. She used every clinical word she had. Mama let her finish. Then very quietly, "In your heart, baby? What does your heart say?" Naomi looked at the table. That was the answer. Mama reached across and covered Naomi's hand with hers. "That man left you. Not because of circumstances. Not because of bad timing. He chose something over you. Quietly. Which is almost worse. And now he is in a wheelchair and he needs you, and suddenly you are the answer to his problem. That's not what this is. How do you know? Silence. I watched my sister sit with that question the way you sit with something you have been asking yourself for weeks and still cannot answer. Finally she said, because I know him. Mama was quiet. Then, you knew him. 5 years is a long time, baby. People change. Sometimes for the better. And sometimes they just get better at asking. Naomi drove home with Mama's words sitting in the passenger seat like a second person. She called me at 11. Do you think I'm being foolish? I think you're being human. Quiet. Then, what do you actually feel when you're in that room with him? A long pause. Like I'm 28 again, she said. And trying to remember how to breathe normally. She didn't say anything else. Which is exactly the problem, she whispered. Something was coming. I could feel it. The kind of thing that doesn't announce itself. It just arrived. It arrived on a Friday. Naomi walked in for a standard session and found 2 extra people. Connor's mother, Patricia Harlo, gray blazer, polished smile, standing by the window like she owned the square footage. And beside her, a man with a leather portfolio across his knees. Connor was in his wheelchair facing them both. Jaw tight. He had not known she was coming. Patricia turned the moment Naomi walked in. Ms. Rivers. Perfect timing. We were just discussing Connor's care plan. Naomi looked at Connor. Connor said, you don't have to stay for this. Patricia said, actually it directly involves her. The attorney opened his portfolio. In the most courteous language money could buy, he laid it out. Prior personal history. Compromised therapeutic relationship. Best medical interest. Generous severance. Formal letter of recommendation. Naomi felt the heat crawl up her neck. Slow. Hot. Humiliating. Mother. Connor's voice was very quiet. I told you not to do this. I'm doing what you can't bring yourself to do, Patricia said. Because you are not thinking clearly. Connor's voice dropped another register. Get of my home. Patricia held his gaze. Something passed between them with years of history inside it. Then she picked up her bag, walked to the door and stopped. She looked at Naomi. Not unkindly. That was the strangest part of all of it. I have nothing against you personally, Miss Rivers. I'm sure you're excellent at your work. I am simply a mother who watched her son fall apart once already. Pause. I don't intend to watch it happen again. The door closed. The room went very quiet. Naomi sat down, stared at the floor for a moment. Then she looked up at him. Did you know she was building towards something like this? A long pause. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? He looked at her steadily. No deflection. No charm. Because I didn't want to give you another reason to leave. That landed somewhere it should not have. She looked at him, really looked. The wheelchair. The honest, exhausted eyes. The man who had once chosen an empire over her, sitting in front of her now with absolutely nothing left to hide behind. No company. No expansion. No late nights that were really just exits. Just him. She stood. Walked to the window. Stood where Patricia had been standing. Atlanta spread below them both, enormous and alive. Connor. I need you to be honest with me. Her voice was low. Careful. If the accident hadn't happened, if you were still who you were 3 years into building that empire, would you have called me? He didn't answer immediately. She gave him that. Finally, I'd like to tell you yes. But the honest answer is I don't know. And you deserve honesty more than you deserve a comfortable lie. Naomi sat with that. The weight of it. 5 years of it. She turned back to face him. I think about that version of us sometimes. The one where you slowed down. Where I stayed. Where we figured it out. She paused. I was angry for a long time. So angry. Connor said nothing. I'm not angry anymore, she said. But I'm not the same woman who stood in your hallway in the dark holding a sweet potato pie, waiting for you to choose her. She moved closer. Not much. Just enough. Close enough that she could see the exact moment something shifted behind his eyes. I built something without you, she said softly. I became someone without you. And I need you to understand that before anything else. Connor's voice was barely above a whisper. I know that. I see that. Is part of why I asked for you. Not just because you're good at your job. He held her gaze. Because you are the strongest person I have ever known. And I needed to remember what that looks like. Naomi's throat moved. Her eyes stayed dry. But only just. She stepped back. One step. The distance mattered. I can't be your therapist and your second chance at the same time, Connor. Those two things cannot live in the same room. He looked at her. What are you saying? She picked up her clipboard. Set it back down. One last look at him. I'm going to refer you to my colleague, Dr. Anita Booker. She's exceptional, better than me in several areas of spinal recovery. She will take excellent care of you. A breath. And I'm saying that if you want to call me in 3 months, not as a patient, not as a case, just as yourself, you can. Connor held her gaze. Something moved across his face that she had never seen there before. Not relief. Not disappointment. Something quieter. Like a man who had finally stopped running and was only now learning what stillness felt like. 3 months, he said. 3 months, she said. She picked up her bag. Walked to the door. Stopped with her hand on the frame. Her back to him. She didn't turn around. You're still that man, Connor. Parts of him, anyway. But so am I, parts of her. Pause. And maybe that's enough to start with. Then she walked out. She called me from the parking garage. Didn't speak for a few seconds. I just held the phone. Then, I think I did the right thing. I think you did too. It doesn't feel good though? No, I said. The right thing usually doesn't. She laughed. Small. Tired. Real. I heard her start her car. Heard Atlanta outside her window. And I sat there thinking about my sister at 28, dropping a clipboard on a marble floor. And my sister now walking out of that same building on her own 2 feet. Choosing herself. Without closing the door completely. That is not a sad ending. That is a woman who finally understood that love is not supposed to cost you yourself. And somewhere on the 30th floor, I believe Connor Harlo was learning the exact same thing. 3 months is not that long. But it is long enough. What would you rate this story? Drop your number, 0 to 10 in the comments right now. If this moved you, subscribe to Danito Stories. We bring you emotional stories like this every single day. And if it truly touched your heart, consider leaving a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more. The next story is even more dramatic than this one. Click now. Thank you for being part of this journey.